All right, so in this question, we're given that the first term is 13 and the common ratio is 5, and we need to find the sum of the first 7 terms of this series over here, this geometric series. So we're going to use our sum equation for geometric series, which is Sn equals to a r to the power of n minus 1 divided by r minus 1. So we're trying to find the sum of the first 7 terms. So we're going to replace n with 7. So we're trying to find S7. A is just the first term, which is 13. R is given as 5. N is just 7. And then we want to complete this calculation over here. So 13, 5 to the power of 7 minus 1 is 78124. Divided by 4, and then I'll put this in my calculator as well. And I get the sum of the first 7 terms to be 253,903. So that was a pretty simple question right there. That was just the basic one and learning how to do the formula. Let's take a look at the second one, which is going to be a bit more difficult now. We're given the first term equals to 11, and the seventh term is 704. And we need to find the sum of the first 7 terms. The problem is we can't use this formula straight away because we don't know what the common ratio is here. So we need to actually figure out the common ratio first using our general term equation, which is Tn equals to a times r to the exponent of n minus 1. I'm going to use the 7th term to solve this equation. So I'm going to replace t of n with basically t of 7, which is 704. A is just my first term, which is 11. Trying to find the common ratio, and n is just 7 because I've subbed in the 7th term in this equation here to the power of 7 minus 1. So now I just have to solve for r. So the first thing I'll do is the exponent. 7 minus 1 is just 6. Then I'll divide both sides by 11. And I get 64 equals to r to the power of 6. And now to isolate r, I'm going to do the 6th root of both sides. Now this is a bit tricky here, but when you do the even root of a number, not the odd root of a number, you have 2 possible solutions. Anytime you do the even root, you can have a positive solution or you can have a negative solution. And again, remember that only works for even roots. For odd roots, there's only one solution. It'll be either positive or negative depending on the number inside. So now we have 2 possibilities. There's basically 2 geometric equations that can have the first term as 11 and then 7th term as 704. Basically, the first one just keeps multiplying by 2 till you reach 704. The second one keeps multiplying by -2, and eventually you'll also reach 704. So we have 2 possible answers here for the sum of our equation. The first possibility, remember, finding the sum of the first 7 terms is equal to a, which is just the first term in this equation, which is given as 11. And then r is 2, n is 7 minus 1 divided by r minus 1. And then the second possibility is just, we have -2 to the power of 7 minus 1 divided by -2 minus 1. It's just the r value that's different in these equations. Let's calculate this. 2 to the power of 7 minus 1 is just 127 divided by 1. And then if I do this calculation here, I'll get 1397 is my first possible answer here. Let's do this calculation here. So 11, denominator is -3. -2 to the power of 7 minus 1 is -129. And let's do this calculation. And we get the second possibility as 473. So 2 possible answers for this question. Definitely a lot trickier, especially if you're in a hard class. Your teacher will expect both solutions. In some easier classes, maybe your teacher will only expect the first solution here. Let's go to the third and final question, where the first term is 120 and the second term is 30. So again, this is a bit of an easier one, not as easy as the first question, but almost as simple. We know our A value, we know our first term, but we don't know our common ratio. But since we know the second term, remember, if you're in a geometric series and you want to find your common ratio, you just do your second term divided by your first term, and then you just simplify that. So 1/4 is the common ratio. I just sub it in my sum equation. So I'm trying to find the sum of the first 7 terms. My first term is 120. My common ratio is 1/4. My n is 7, so -1, and then divided by 1/4 minus 1. I'll do the calculation now. Bottom is just -3/4, and I'll put this in my calculator. So 1/4 to the power 7 minus 1 is just negative. This is a really small number, but it won't give you a fraction because the fraction has too many values in the denominator to actually write it as a fraction in your calculator. So I think we'll just round this to 4 decimal places. It should be good. And then if I do this calculation over here, I'll use the exact value in my calculator so I get an exact solution. And I will get 159.99.